Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we've got 38 days left in my running challenge to become the first person that ever completes the Calendar Club 365, where I run the number of miles equal to the day of the month for one full year. Today, on the 23rd of March, I'm running 23 miles. Yesterday, I ran 22. Tomorrow, I'll run 24. Holy cow. Okay, so today, I've got a few things I want to talk about before I get outside. It is 12:15. I got a lot of energy. I'm cracked up on coffee right now, but that's a good thing, Makes for a good video. I was talking to a climber friend of mine, a guy who is a professional, and he is definitely more of the athlete-minded approach. Way opposite end of the spectrum to someone who's like a content creator. He is the definition of a freaking athlete. Spends 8 to 10 hours on his craft in the rock climbing gym, lifting. I mean, this dude's a beast. His name's Simon. I'll tag his Instagram here. You should check him out. He's a beast. Okay. And he and I were going back and forth over the last couple days on this mindset of early on when you start your endeavor, whether it's running for me or climbing for him or, whatever it is for you, you find rapid growth early. And my takeaway from that is like you find rapid growth because your curiosity and the lack of pressure you put on yourself, because you're new, and the obstacles in the beginner stage are so low that you just find success early and then you just start to foot. But eventually you plateau because you reach your limit of, okay, like you're now at a point where the obstacles in your way need some dedicated work. They need dedicated practice. They need, years of experience or just knowledge or any of the other things that are involved to making that next jump after that plateau. And what we talked about and what, my advice to him was, we was a back and forth, was you need to find a way to turn that confidence into a humble body of consistent work. So once you've made that jump, once you've built that momentum, once you've built that confidence of like, holy cow, I can do anything I put my mind to, that needs to turn into a consistent body of work so you stay at that plateau. You don't just allow that confidence to turn into an ego that then causes you to slip back down because you don't think you need to put in the work. It goes back to the saying, hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. Now, there are some extreme outliers where you can show up. I mean, who's the wide receiver who only eats McDonald's? He's out of the league now. Terrell Owens. I think it's T.O., but just only ate McDonald's, which I don't know how true that is. But like, he's the type of guy who can show up and not work as hard as a guy who is coming in the league as a D3 player or lower D1 guy, and he's just got to grind his way. Christian McCaffrey, perfect example. The guy's extremely talented, but he was an extremely hard worker that those two combined got him to the place where he's at. And if you're like me, you probably are. We're people that need to work hard. Okay, we've got talent, but we need to work hard at the same time. And so, putting in a consistent body of work that builds, and you start to see things in years and decades, and seeing growth in that way, that will allow you to kind of stay humble, stay true to the daily sacrifice needed to make that next, big jump. And a lot of times you won't even know you've made that jump until you're in it and somebody points it out for you. Or you'll be in it and you'll look back, you'll take a minute to look back and reflect and say, holy cow, look at where it was 2 years ago and look at where I am today. I didn't even realize that I was making that growth until now, reflecting back on it. So that's kind of a big thing we talked about, is like thinking in decades. And then this is one thing that I had thought of, where in reflection back, I started to notice the growth that I had, but it was also like people that I looked up to in the sport had made acknowledgments, whether it was through like, a text, not a text, but like a DM or like a comment on a post, or even just like following and then following me and then following that up with like, a DM of saying like, I see the work that you're doing and I want to applaud you, like stuff like that from people that I view as leaders in the sport, or just they're a decade older than me. And that to me is like confirmation of like, wow, that makes me feel seen, and like the work that I'm doing is earning the respect of people that I respect. And that's cool to me. That's something that I definitely look forward to, is like earning the respect of. Example is like David Goggins is the GOAT, obviously. I don't want to be friends with him. He doesn't want to be friends with me, let's be frank, But if I can show up and he says, he hears the story that I'm on and he's just sees it and is like, respect. That's cool. That's fucking cool. That means that I'm on a path that somebody that I ultimately have high regard and respect for is like, I respect what you're doing, because that's fucking hard and you're putting yourself in a position to be uncomfortable and you're taking risks. And that ultimately is like a big deal for me. So that's super cool. And then joy. Oh, okay. This is the last thing before I got to hop outside is, Simon was talking about when is the time to really reevaluate your path, reevaluate, when you start to get into those like longer periods of growth and you don't really see it. When is the time to reevaluate if where you're on or where you're going is what you should continue to do? And what I told him is like, dude, you gotta always remember, for me, joy for me is in the serendipity of life. It is those random coincidences, those moments in life where you're like, there's no way. There's no way. I talked about this in yesterday's video of like when we were doing the FKT and we were talking about this bar that Landon was going to meet his family at. And neither one of us, all three of us, we didn't know what he was talking about. We was like, we never heard of that. We lived in St. Paul for years and we've never heard of that bar. And then 5-10 minutes later, we open up on the trail and it's that bar. Like, that to me is the joy of life. That to me, the serendipity of like the chances of that happening are just like, you can't even comprehend. You're like, what the hell? So that to me is where I derive the most joy of life from. And what I've realized is, yes, running put us in that position to have that moment. And that has happened in running for me in so many different aspects of life. But I don't need running in order to have moments like that. Running is just a way for me to experience moments like that. But there are so many different aspects of life where you can experience that, whether it's just going about your day to day and being open to the possibility of those things happening. So just recognizing that, that's part of the reason why after Calendar Club ends, I'm going to take time to just be. Obviously, I'll run and obviously I'll post, but it won't be like, I won't jump into the next thing because I need to be okay with not being a runner. And that to me is a precious time to really get real with who I am as a person and understand the meaning of being able to step away, because eventually that's going to happen, right, guys? It's going to happen. So those are my thoughts today. I'm loving this whiteboard for reasons like this, and I will see y'all outside. Energy is something that you create. We have the ability to create energy from nothing. First, it's got to start with a belief that we can. It's got to start with the energy that momentum, that guys going nuts in a huddle, that stuff is started from within inside each one of us. I was just getting myself hyped up here and thinking about how, so I played lacrosse in college, and thinking about how when guys scored a goal, there's a reason that there's this subconscious, unconscious almost, thing that we do when we score a goal. High-fiving, jumping on each other, clapping, hugging, celebrating, coming together. And it's like, it's not even a choice we make, but a reaction that is so ingrained in us that when we achieve, when we celebrate, when we score a goal, there's this reaction to come together. And when things aren't going so well, you know, the energy's low, people kind of stick to themselves. There's not a whole lot of hooting and hollering. And it's like the first step to getting that energy, that momentum back, is by realizing that as much as it's as real as the absence of that energy is, we get to decide. It goes back to fear. It goes back to our choices. What are we deciding is our reality? Momentum, energy, that stuff is palpable. You can feel it. You can't see it, you can't touch it, but you can feel it. And that's real. We can create that. We just have to decide to start the momentum towards growing it into what it can be. That's power.
This is what it's all about. Yeah.
17 miles in. What is that?
6 left.
It's pretty good. I've never been one to really sit in front of the TV all day, especially on Saturday, and just watch sports all day. I think it's a nice thought. I think especially in college football Saturdays, or a day like today, or it's March Madness. I love the thought of being able to do it and knowing that there's a unique energy in the air. But it's just never been something that I've gone out and done. Instead of spend my Saturdays outside like this for hours upon hours. And I've been out here since noon, 12:15, and what's been fun is just allowing myself to have an adventure, allowing myself to leave the house. And I got a certain amount of miles I'm gonna run, but just going where my feet take me and experiencing what the environment has to offer around. And I think what's been really helpful for me over the years is having a Saturday, having a day of the week, Saturday, to allow myself to go do that. And I feel refreshed. I feel revitalized by the world, by just experiencing the people. And I think more people, if you're lost, can find that. I just think something, well, I know from experience, something special happens when we leave our front door without expectation, without having to find the adventure, but just allowing the adventure to come to us in little moments and big moments. And now, like, I'm gonna go home, go to sauna, I'm gonna cold tub, I'm gonna eat, and I'll go have a beer with my girlfriend and watch whatever games are on. There's still room to be able to do that, but it's not the priority of the day. It's kind of the aftermath of whatever time is left over, feeling accomplished and fulfilled from a day of adventure. And I just want to encourage you, if that's something you're doing, if you're spending all day drinking and watching sports all day, if there's a part of you that's sitting there and thinking, I could do more, I'm spending a lot of this time thinking, I'm spending a lot of this time thinking about what I could be doing instead of being present in this moment, then I encourage you to take a weekend off. Go outside and have yourself an adventure. Just leave, whether it's bike riding, walking, running, just leave and don't come back until you've lost yourself. You've lost the purpose of what you meant to go out and do in the first place. I know this is probably not making a whole lot of sense. My lips are a little cold. The words just aren't coming out correctly. But the message is, go out and have an adventure. There's a lot on the outside world that's waiting to offer us something to reflect back to us about the way we're living and how good we have it. I'll see y'all tomorrow.